and welcome to another Coffee with Kilroy, or what I sometimes call beverage in a book. My beverage, well, coffee, and I'm almost done with it for today. It's been a long day. My book, Lost Battles by Sabin, reconstructing the great clashes of the ancient world. And I've covered some of Professor Sabin's work before, including simulating war, studying conflict through simulation games, and I'll put a link to that down below in the description, so you can take a look at that. And I kind of went on, droned on, but there might be something that you might want to find. The main thing is take a look at the book, and that's what my purpose here is take a look at this book. This one, I talk a little bit about this book in that previous video on simulating war, because there's some crossover. In simulating war, he talks about simulating ancient warfare, and that's what this book is all about. It's about simulating ancient warfare, and he basically talks about how he develops a system for that, and kind of his thoughts around that, and then provides the system for that in the book here, or his model in this book here. In the earlier book, the Simulating War, is really more of a overview of wargaming, some of the concepts, some of the theories, and some of the components of that. How do you simulate? How do you research? What are you trying to simulate? What are some of the mechanics and components of all that? And so that's what that book is about. It's basically kind of a how-to approach wargaming, or being a wargame designer in some respects. This one is really focusing on a certain aspect of wargaming, ancient warfare, and what are the things you need to consider in modeling ancient warfare or simulating ancient warfare, and comes up with his own system. Now, this came along with, I think there was an edition of, he has a game called Lost Battles, where it's a whole system based on his research, and based on his modeling that he did through this book. He has a whole system on ancient warfare called Lost Battles, and this book came along with that game. Now, I missed out on that. I didn't pick that game up. I wish I had, but I didn't. And it's really expensive nowadays. I mean, it goes for north of $200, $300 or whatever, if you can find it. But I think there was an edition of that game, which had the game and the rules and all the components, but then also had this book as well. But I end up, after the fact, just picking up this book. So enough of all that dribble. Let's have some drink and see what this book is all about. And I've talked about this briefly in another video where I just kind of did a canvas of war game books, and so I'll put a link to that down below as well, so you can get all my links. Here is Sabin. Sabin offers a brilliant reconstruction of ancient Greek and Roman battle. He models and refights those battles through a game-like process that brings them to life. The result is utterly fascinating. Lost Battles is required reading for anyone interested in ancient warfare. So that's a little bit of a tag here. The great battles of Alexander, Hannibal, and Caesar arouse endless interest, but our understanding of them is marred by the weakness of the surviving source material from so long ago. Rather than producing yet another set of individualistic personal hunches to overcome this uncertainty about each specific battle, Sabin develops a radical new approach of comparative dynamic modeling. He draws on sources from the classical world as a whole to create a common generic model of ancient battle, and then uses this to cast new light on the vexed scholarly controversies over individual engagements. Lost Battle employs a simple simulation techniques to make traditional battle diagrams come to life. Readers will actually be able to refight engagements for themselves, gaining greater insights into whether proposed tactics and deployments made military sense, and experimenting with alternative possibilities such as the presence or absence of the Persian cavalry at Marathon. Lost Battles is a toolkit for further study, offering endless, thought-provoking insights into the enigma of ancient warfare. Okay, so that's another reason why I picked this up, because this is kind of, again, a toolkit for ancient warfare. So if you're interested in ancient warfare, this kind of gives you a whole modeling of that, and kind of a rule set of sorts. Again, you don't get the components with this, but this did come along with a full game that had components and everything, all the good stuff for it. You got some free download here if you want to refight. If you want to refight the battles on your PC screen. I haven't done that. I need to, maybe I should try that. Philip Sabin is a professor of strategic study at King's College London and has recently co-edited the prestigious 2-volume Cambridge History of Greek and Roman Warfare. He specializes in analytical modeling of conflicts, and this highly innovative book builds upon his long-standing teaching and research interests in both ancient warfare and conflict simulation. And he teaches a whole class on wargame and wargame design and conflict simulation. He teaches a whole class on that. God, I wish I had that class when I was in college. So anyway, so let's take a quick look at this book then and see what you get here. Some illustrations that are going to be in here. Here's acknowledgments, of course. Or let's look at the, where is the, those are just illustrations. Let's look at the table of contents. I kind of skipped that. So we have the model. So he goes through his sources, armies, movement, fighting, command, and the model in operation. So he basically lays out his premise. So there's the model. Then he talks about the battles, Athens and Sparta, the age of Xenophon, Alexander the Great, the successors, Carthage and Rome, Hannibal and Scipio, Rome moves east, Julius Caesar. And then he's got a conclusion, and then he's got some appendix. He's got his rules, using the model, directory of battles, and glossary. So there's that rules is kind of the culmination of all this research and thought. You end up with a rule set here. And again, that rule set was used as the basis for an actual game set to refight these battles. I think we call that a war game. So the introduction here is important to read because it does give kind of the thought process of how he got here and what his thinking was to come up with this model. Goes through his sources, and again, this guy is an ancient history professor and author, so he probably has pretty good sources. He talks about the armies here. So if you're just interested in the history, it's good to look at some of this as well because this is going to give you some historical context. But it gives you the historical context through the eyes of a wargame designer, right? He's trying to model these conflicts, and they're coming up with some gaps in their sources because it's ancient warfare. So we don't have either the most accurate or most reliable or even a source on some of these conflicts or some aspects of the conflict. So he decided to come up with a model to fill in some of those gaps. So here we're getting into the math of it all. Number of troops, vehicles, beasts, multiple in use, and unit type and class. So he's got a fighting value here. So that's kind of interesting that he's giving some of his math and assumptions and how he comes up with his model. Here's movement, a big factor in any conflict, but ancient had its own limitations on movement and modeling that. Here's fighting and how he's going to model the fighting and talking about like kind of zones of control of certain sort or zones of fighting. He's talking about probability here for his conflict. So for those of you who like statistics, take a look at that. So again, he's giving you, this is the buildup. He kind of takes you along his journey of how he put all this together and what he was looking at and focusing on, and then it's going to culminate in the in his rule set here. So some interesting stuff. Looking at some of these battles here, the setup. So even if you're just a miniatures gamer, some of these setups might be pretty cool to have for that aspect. Then we get into command here. And command is a huge aspect of ancient warfare, and he's got he kind of comes up with the cost mechanism here, what the command cost is for some of these different activities. It's kind of a different way of modeling command. And then, different types of leaders here, between brilliant commander down to uninspired leader, and how that affects certain aspects of of fighting value and rally and morale. Do a little bit close up of that one. That's kind of interesting there. And then we get into the operation. How does this play out? He's going by a turn here example. Then we get into the battles. And so what are some of the key aspects of some of the battles that he decided to cover? And again, this guy's a Greek or ancient history historian, so he's pulling upon his own years of research on some of these battles. So you get a little bit of a, if you're a history buff, I mean, you're going to like some of the, his take on some of these battles from a modeling standpoint of what was important about that. And this is all the context of the battles and the different history here. So this aspect of the book is kind of history through the eyes of a game designer, right? So that's an interesting aspect of this book here. Look a little bit more here. We get some more setups here. Gotta like the setups. So there's quite a bit of history in this book, at least from the standpoint of, this looks very similar to like a setup for a game, like, Great Battles of History. You're going to have like a context, and you're going to have the setup, and maybe in a map, maybe even. And so this to me is reminiscent of that. Is like these little vignettes or like little setups for battles. And there's a lot more of that there. And let's get to the rules, because I thought I'd hit the rules real quick here. Quite a bit of setups. Here's his conclusion. Talking about force, space, time, and command, key elements of that, and then you get to the rules here. So here are the rules as Appendix 1, and you're going to have your standard rules for like what you might see for an ancient conflict. Unit types and classes, troop ratio, generals. You have the battlefield. You've got sequence of play. You've got commands. Activation, all that kind of good stuff. Movement, facing, terrain, stacking, mixed groups, which was an interesting aspect of ancient warfare because, command, the composition of your units really affected command because, there might even be different languages spoken. So, and trying to get the cohesion of your forces and the command was very challenging in ancient world, or different than what we might have today. Here's combat, and here's the rules on the different aspects of combat, and the combat results. Then you get morale, and then you get generals. Of course, they have different capabilities and bonuses. You have special unit types. Then you have scenario conditions. So like surprise and fatigue, dust, wet weather. Then you get victory. And you got summary of some charts here. And that's the rules. And again, he took that and overlaid that into a full-on war game called Lost Battles. Then you have using this model, talking about some of the limitations and the like of using that model. And then you got directory of the battles here, a little bit of a key there. And the rest of this is appendix and glossary and the stuff. So there you have it. That's Lost Battles. If you're interested in designing of ancient conflicts or understanding, better understanding ancient conflicts through game design or through simulation, then this probably is a good resource for you. So, and I would highly recommend that. If you've read this book, if you've played the game, feel free to drop comments down below what you think about it. What do you think about this model? What do you think about his rules? What do you think about his game? Any of that stuff is fair game. So put it down in the comments down below. Love to hear from you on that. Anyway, that's what I have for you today on my Coffee with Kilroy. Thank you so much for stopping by. Always greatly appreciated. And I'm going to finish my cup and go on with the day. And I hope whatever you're doing, whether you're watching this early or midday or evening, I hope you have a great rest of your day as well. Thanks all. Thanks for watching.